Good morning, friends. Hope you are doing well. Actually, it's almost noon, so we're going to be in the sun for a little bit, but we are going to be working today in a section of the garden that I really never do anything and has been much neglected, needs help. And I think also could end up being a really nice kind of reno project where we actually add stuff and make this really pretty. So this section of the property is on a pretty steep slope. There is a retaining wall here that eventually needs to come out and be rebuilt. But that cost is extremely high, so we have not tackled it. We used to have along here, there are giant ferns here, but there used to also be a huge loropetalum tree that was, I don't know, at this point, shrub. It went up to, 12 feet and had completely overgrown the patio here. We had a Pyrrhus japonica that was the same. It was just absolutely enormous. And we had a camellia that also had gotten almost 12 feet tall. And so it had taken over this whole patio here next to the pool. And so we removed them. And by doing that, we actually opened up a lot of sun in this space. That was completely shaded before. So there are big oak trees right over here. So this section only really gets sun for about 2 hours. And in the winter, not much. I've got some containers here in front of me that, they do fine. What I'm going to do today is there's a lot of dead and dead fern material because it's now exposed to sun. It didn't used to be. I want to come up on this hillside and cut back all the dead fern stuff. I want to remove these giant blackberry brambles that are climbing through. I want to cut down a bunch of saplings that are just suckers that have come up. Basically clear this whole section so I can start to get an idea of what we might add in. I want to investigate the soil up here, which is very thin. So the other issue of this location is that the fence line back here, at the base of the fence, is actually a road. It is the driveway for our neighbors. So they're up the hill. And that driveway is very old, 40, 50 years maybe. Ground moves in California. And over time, the ground has shifted enough that the big drains, there are large drains in that driveway. But over time, the ground has shifted enough that those large drains actually tilt kind of towards us. And so what happens when we have a huge rain event, which we most likely will be getting this coming winter because it is going to be a super El Nino, which means wet for us. The water that falls up the hill kind of bypasses those drains. Those drains go down the hill underneath our property into the creek bed, which is down another probably 15, 20 feet below us here. So because the water is not running into the drains, it then makes its way underneath our fence, down our hillside, through our retaining wall, and then into our pool, and basically the pool gets full of mud every winter. The fix to this is either for that whole driveway is very, very long because there are multiple houses on that driveway. Either have that whole driveway redone. That is not in our power, and the lovely people who live up there are all elderly and on fixed incomes and stuff, so we know that's not going to happen. The other option is for us to redo our retaining wall and put cement drains. We've had multiple engineers come out and look. I think we had 4 different estimates on this. They said a French drain will not be enough because of the amount of water. So it needs to be literally a cement culvert behind a new retaining wall that then runs. We would have to move the greenhouse. They'll build, this is all because of the lay of the land. They would have to build cement drains and stuff to go down to the creek bed. Would not be very pretty. We would find ways to prettify it, but the biggest issue is that the least expensive quote that we got for that, and this is a number of years ago, was almost $60,000. So that has not happened. It costs us about $300 to demud the pool once a year. And so that's just what we've been doing. Now, we have multiple times tried through many, many rainy seasons to sandbag the whole area. We'll put, layers like 5 high sandbags. The water eventually and the mud eventually moves its way around those sandbags. It is because we get so much, and because it's coming from up the hill. It's not just the rain that falls right here. It's all the rain that falls up the whole hill coming down into our property to make its way to the creek. So this is just a problem that we deal with. And knowing that this area here is in that floodplain, I have to think really consciously about what, if anything, I actually want to put there. Now, the rest of this hillside is covered in ivy, and the ivy kind of starts right here and it goes all the way down quite far, probably 60 feet, maybe 70 feet. We would love to rip out all that ivy at some point. It is a really good habitat for rats. And so we would love to rip all that out and actually plant this whole hillside. I mean, that would be wonderful. But again, we're not sure, first of all, that's expensive. That's a lot of plants. But getting rid of ivy, if you have ever tried to do that, it is very, very challenging. You can pull it all up, but because it grows by rhizomes underground, it's always there. It is great at holding soil in place. So that's one of the reasons it's still there, because we have not made any plans to change this area, and we want something feeding the soil and holding the soil in place. The more that's there, the better, which is why I'm thinking if I can plant a couple things here, that might help a little bit too with our runoff issue. Now, the majority of the water does not come in this area. The majority of the water comes down roughly between this oak tree right here and this California buckeye over here. Also, all of the trees along this fence line are new. So we have photos of 2001, this place. We didn't move in until 2017, but in 2001, the then property owners put the pool and patio in. This was just grass. This was just grass. And there was no fence here. It was just a slow, steady hill up to the driveway for the neighbors. And it was all grass. The whole property was grass. There was hardly any shade because the redwoods behind you weren't as tall. That was 25 years ago. And none of these trees were here. These trees were planted and some of them have just shown up because they are native trees and they tend to do that, especially the buckeyes. So these were put in when the fence was put in because the fence is required for insurance purposes when you have a pool. So this backyard used to be full sun. Now there is a ton of shade. And one of the reasons that makes a difference is that we have a solar roof. And the bigger these trees get, the less production we get on our roof. So we would actually like to remove most of these trees, especially the buckeyes. Those are natives, but we have plenty of California buckeyes in our creek bed. California buckeye, they are the first tree to produce shoots in the spring, so it's nice because they're just bright green and beautiful. They have really pretty panicle flowers, but then they start to senesce or turn brown and die back for fall in July. So they look diseased for much of the summer and into the fall, and then they're just sticks. And so, and also their flowers, the buckeye is poisonous. And so the flowers are actually poisonous, toxic to bees and other pollinators. And when they drop their buckeye fruits, then new saplings spring up. So we would like to get rid of the buckeyes, cut those down. Those I think we might be able to handle ourselves, except for there is power lines on the other side of the fence, which may become a problem. The oak trees are not something we can handle on our own. They are now too tall. We need to hire tree service for that. And of course, that comes with great expense. So at some point, maybe in the spring, if we're fortunate, we can have, because we do need to have them come out and do a lot of tree work here on the property, as well as I'd like to do the farm tree work as well. And they're just too big for us to manage in any safe way, especially around power lines and fences. We will not touch the redwoods. Those stay. We do have, every couple of years, we have a tree service come out and clear off dead branches from the redwoods and then inspect them. There's an arborist that comes and inspects them to make sure they're okay and healthy, because they are right next to our house. So if a redwood falls, it's not necessarily a good thing. Redwoods also have very shallow root systems, and they interleave their roots with other redwoods. They grow in groves. So you really don't want to remove one in a grove, because that makes the rest of the grove unstable. So we have a number of redwoods on the hillside over here. Those we won't touch other than to trim back dangerous branches that are dying or whatever. So with all of that knowledge, this potential to have a whole new planting space is super exciting. As you can see, it's getting sun right now, but that is just because we have this tiny window between the oak trees that has some sun, but the rest of the time, so this is all in afternoon shade, which is great because it is the hottest time of the day. So some ideas for plants that I could put in here. Oak leaf hydrangeas, which would be wonderful. They would give us autumn color, pretty flowers in the spring and summer, and they want shade, so they'd be perfect here. Up front in our now pittosporum hedge, which is so huge, when we planted it, I also put in 2 red twig dogwoods, but they are small and they're completely covered by the pittosporum. I would like to dig those up. They would be much happier in this type of situation. So we could move those here. Now, technically, red twig dogwood is, I think, only hardy to zone 8, and we are 9B. But they've done okay for us in the shade. So I could move those back here. I also have lemon cypress in containers that do get big. We could eventually pop those in here. And of course, all the usual heuchera, hardy geraniums, hellebores, ferns, all that kind of stuff would look beautiful on this hillside. So, all that being said, today, all I'm doing is starting with the cleanup and investigation. So I'm going to be cutting back saplings, trimming all the, the ferns and stuff because they're looking kind of rough. Just massive cleanup. I've got a Japanese maple over here that I need to do some cleanup for, some dead branches and stuff. And then we can get an idea of what's really here and what we can do next. So that's the order of the day. I'm looking forward to it. It's warm today. I think the high is only supposed to be 84. But the heat that we were under for the last 3 days has broken. Last night we were able to open the house. It was gorgeous. A breeze through the house. I think it went down to 62 last night. It was lovely. And it's still lovely today. This breeze, even if it's warm outside, so nice. So I'm appreciative because I'll be mostly working in shade or dappled sun today, even when it gets warm. And I think this will be a really nice way to spend the day. It'll feel productive, and then we'll know what we're working with. So I'm going to get started. that is a big improvement. I'm all cut up from the ivy and stuff, but I'm really glad I did this. It looks so much better, and now I can see places where I had plants, can put plants again. You know, there's so much deep leaf litter because we don't clean up our leaves. We leave them because they're just, this is a woodland area. We just let it become mulch. So actually the soil in places where I thought would be super thin, not so bad. So I started over here around my hellebores, which took a beating this year, and I think it was because I had stuff growing around them. It was just laying on them. This is a native iris. Probably at some point I need to dig it up and separate it. I got a comfrey that just self-sowed there. But this whole area used to be euchra, and now there's only a few left. So I would like to replace them, get a lot more going in here, and I think I'll do brighter colors. As much as I love these darker euchra, they just don't show up in the shade. So maybe we'll do a few bright hostas as well. But the thing I like about the euchras is that they are evergreen here, and so that's nice. But yeah, I would like to pop a bunch more in here. We'll just kind of weave them through. This is hardy geranium that blooms in the spring. It is beautiful, and I'm just going to leave this carpet here. We'll let her do what she's doing. These little, I guess they're mondo grass. I don't know. I didn't put them in. They're fine. They are a little, I mean, whatever. I'm not a big fan of these, but it's ground cover right now, so we'll leave it. The Pyrrhus is looking fine. Looking good. I didn't really do anything to her. There was a couple of dead branches at the bottom, and then I cleaned out underneath the Japanese maple. But now this rock is exposed because I cut back what was left of the spindly fern, and I would love to put something behind it to spill over that rock a little bit, and we can continue our euchra along through here. Now, one thing I have to be very careful of is along this in between the pool patio and the retaining wall is a gas line. It goes all the way to our pool pump. It's pretty deep, and whatever I'm putting here is not going to be super deep to dig, but I'm just going to be careful. I won't be using a shovel. I'll just be using a hand trowel to dig out these whatever holes for plants. But yeah, I might do a few euchra back here. However, this fern does get large, so whatever I put in the back probably won't be seen otherwise. And then up along the hillside here, I just cut down some of the saplings, got rid of all the dead stuff in those ferns. But when I move away the leaf litter, there's actually some nice soil under there. So there's a lot of erosion, like, you know, you can see where the water runs. This is all hard, solid, nasty clay. But, you know, if I dug through there, it wouldn't be so bad. But here, where the leaves have sat, is really nice. So I do think we could pop in a couple of oak leaf hydrangeas in here, or three maybe, a trio, and they would look nice, and it wouldn't be terrible digging. We'll see. This was probably a redwood tree at some point in the past, and obviously got cut down a long, long time ago. But we are going to run into some roots because of these trees here. So yeah, we'll just have to see. I think I'm going to have to start out with smaller plants than I would normally like. I would like to do at least a gallon size, but we'll just have to see what the soil can take. Now, I obviously did not attack any of the ivy except for what was spilling over the wall. That is another project for another time when we actually have plants to put in there. And there's also tons of blackberry through there, so it's very thorny in addition to the ivy. But when we start working on taking out this buckeye and that buckeye over there, and then whatever shrub that is down there, we can, you know, maybe start tackling some of this. It is hard to move on this hillside. It is slick because of all the leaf litter and stuff. And in this ivy, I know there are rats, and it's deep. So when you put your foot in there, it goes pretty deep. So I would prefer to be wearing probably high top boots, just in case. I'm not worried about rats biting me. I'm worried about snakes. Actually, if there's snakes in there, that's great, but I just don't want to get bit. So that was not something I was prepared to do today. So continuing on here, and I know they look really emaciated at this point, but you can see this is a brand new frond. So, you know, it's sending out new growth. It'll continue to do that until the end of the season. So I just wanted to cut back all the dead stuff or dying stuff. And this clears out a lot of space. We could do more heuchera in here. We could do hostas through here. I mean, any shade plant would look nice. And then this is a different fern, and these guys get huge. These are deciduous. They do die back in the winter, whereas these guys tend to stay for the whole winter. So this whole bed looks barren in the wintertime because the ferns die back. I would like to remedy that by putting some winter interest stuff in here, things that will be evergreen in the wintertime. But again, I had to be careful. We've got pool equipment right there, and then we have that gas line under here. I'm pretty sure it's right along the edge here. But this looks a lot better. I cut everything off of the wall. We had all kinds of vines that weren't just ivy growing through there. You know, it looks a little more spindly, but I think it actually looks a whole lot better. We've got some really pretty rocks in here that were completely covered, so I would like to highlight some of these things. And I kind of stopped with pulling all the stuff off the wall right around here because it's getting tight. And also, I'm tired and hot and feel like things are crawling on me. Kind of just want to go shower. But this was a lot that I accomplished today, so it feels good. I see places where I can put ground cover that is evergreen. Just, I want some winter interest in here because, like I said, it just becomes an empty bed and it's kind of an eyesore. And there's so much potential here. So yeah, I would like to start focusing on this. Now, it's going to be a while before I can put a lot of plants in here because I don't really have that much in the budget for that right now, but we'll work towards that. Still to clean up is kind of starting at this grass down. We've got stuff along the fence line that I need to cut off and cut out. This fern needs to get cut back, as well as this one, obviously, all through here. Got a bunch of oak saplings that need to come out of here. You can see them there. And we've got blackberry briars growing through here. So this is going to be a little bit more work, more intense. There is black mondo grass in here. And we do have false Solomon seal that I actually planted a while ago. But yeah, this whole area, I would love to get cleaned up, clean back that whole retaining wall, cut out all this vining stuff, because that's really just adding to the destruction of the retaining wall. So yeah, but that's for another day. Another part of the garden that I would really like to do more with is this area. You can probably see that it's on quite a slope. We have 2 redwood trees back here and a Japanese maple, and then this oak tree, the forked one, that needs to come out because it is infringing on the redwood, and it is growing over our roof. So we want to get rid of that, and these buckeyes as well. But yeah, this we brought in all of these boulders a couple years ago, and I did plant some things back here, but the irrigation hasn't worked back here in probably 2 years. So everything that you see is unirrigated. I would like to remedy that, get the irrigation fixed, and actually plant some nice things because this is our kitchen window, and it is really nice to be able to do dishes and look out onto something pretty. Now in the springtime, it's really nice because we have tons of spring bulbs in here, and you can actually see the detritus that's left. I just never picked it up. But it is so bone dry in here that the only reason some of these things like this ajuga is still surviving is luck. So I would like to do a lot of work back here, remedy the irrigation problem, and clear out a bunch of this and put in some more plants. I did, when we first put out the boulders, I did plant stuff back there behind them with the idea that it would grow up, and it worked a little bit at the beginning, but they didn't get established, and then the irrigation problem happened, and we just haven't dealt with it because there's been other places on the property that we needed to work. So this whole hillside is mostly open to, you know, new garden space if we really want it. And it will take a lot of work and probably a lot of money, but I would like to slowly work on filling this stuff in. This is not a one weekend project, unless we had an enormous amount of money. This is not a weekend project. So we've had a wardrobe change because I was editing, and the whole last outro that I filmed was completely out of focus. This camera has been pushing my buttons lately, so we're going to try this again. But I'm really happy with what I got done today. I am excited about having new garden space to work in. I think it's going to be really fun to just slowly tackle this area. And it's a nice challenge because I'm going to think about the least expensive ways to do this and still have it look good. So I'll be probably drawing up some things because I don't want it to look piecemeal, like, oh, I did this little bit and it's not cohesive with this little bit down here. So I probably will literally draw up some plans and then just slowly work on that over time and as budget can afford. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Thanks so much for joining me today, you guys. I hope you have a wonderful time in your garden, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.